Take, thanks for joining us tonight. Ryan, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Did a little shopping, enjoyed the pool on this Memorial Day weekend. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been a good time. How about
Yeah,
yourself? You doing good?
it's been a good time. Lots of golf, a lot of relaxation with the missus, and so it's going to be a great day tomorrow. Memorial Day weekend's always very special to us. We have several family members that have entered the military, and we thank them for their service. And same with everyone else that puts their life out. So then Ryan and I can talk about football. And so we greatly appreciate you. We hope that everyone is having a Memorial Day week, having a great Memorial Day weekend. And today we are going to be talking about the NFC West, and we're going to be breaking down each of the season, doing a preview of each of the teams now, kind of up to this point. This is essentially June. I mean, it's the end of May. June's right around the corner. And if I'm not mistaken, there's going to be a lot of potential trades that come up or cuts that come up here in the next couple of weeks. And so it's going to be very interesting to kind of see what happens. But before we get into that, Brian and I would like to just say thank you again for joining us. And if this is your first time on this channel, please hit that subscribe button and like this video and comment on this video and let us know your thoughts on how these NFC West teams are going to do this year and who you think is going to win the division. And Ryan, let's get back into this. This was my favorite thing that we did last year. Just kind of doing the analysis and really kind of getting to see where each kind of just seeing the players move. You especially nowadays, so many players move. But even when we were younger, guys would move or guys would move teams, or there'd be these changes. But don't really realize how the little nuanced stuff, like if an offensive lineman retires, as we're about to get to in a second, how big of a deal that's going to be for this organization and which way that they move forward here. But we talked about it pregame. We did it last year. We're going to do it this year. We're going to start with the Super Bowl champs, Los Angeles Rams. Congratulations. You guys will gladly give up all of your first three first-round picks if it means that you'll win a Super Bowl every single year. And now also get to see all these, I think it's AT&T and all these Matt Stafford commercials about how you can go have a phone for 12 years and then use a great phone and you never forget the phone, but then you get a new phone and then it makes your life so much better, but you'll never forget the old phone. Now we get to see those commercials all the time. I always chuckle a little bit at those.
No, those are good commercials. As a marketer, I give it the stamp of approval. But I do want to talk a little bit about some of the other moves that have happened with them this offseason. First of all, like you mentioned this in the little preview here, Andrew Whitworth retired. They're starting left tackle, and they don't necessarily have a great plan to replace him. I think they're just kind of going with the next man up mentality. They drafted Logan Bruce, the guard out of Wisconsin, with their first pick in the draft, which was round 3, pick 104. But really, everybody that they drafted, I don't think is going to come in and make an immediate impact. I have some serious questions actually about this team this year.
Well, so one thing, they did address the offensive line. They signed Joseph Noteboom to a 3-year deal, did sign center Brian Allen as well to a 3-year deal, and also Coleman Shelton. So I applaud them. I mean, there definitely is a they're like, we lost Andrew Whitworth, who was the stalwart left tackle, and so now we got to address that position, then also bolster up the offensive line. So then we may be able to increase other areas as well. And so in case of this left tackle spot goes down a little bit. So I do applaud them for that. And I think kind of draft wise, they did everything that they could do in the draft. I mean, I think they still ended up having 7 picks, I believe. Now all were on day 3, but
well, they had one compensatory pick.
Oh, okay. So they did a little bit of work. They had an appetizer on day 2, and then the main work came in on day 3. But for them, I still think now a majority, a lot of the big weapons, like the weapons from the Super Bowl team, are still there. Cam Akers is going to come back. I hope he stays healthy in the offseason because how dominant he was in the playoff. It's going to be very interesting to see when he's healthy and how quickly he came back, which is kind of amazing coming back from an Achilles tear. They don't have Robert Woods anymore. They traded him to Tennessee, but I don't think that is as big of a loss.
I don't think so either.
He is a solid receiver. He's going to do fine in Tennessee. But the big thing is he's going to be getting Odell Beckham signed because he's still a free agent. And I mean, I think he wants to be in LA. I also think that they really want him to be in LA because then they have Cooper
he played well
Kupp.
for them.
Oh yeah, he did. And then who was there? I'm trying to remember who was the Rams tight end last year because they had a solid tight end. Let me pull this up here.
I forget the tight end's name.
Um,
I can only think of the guy from Purdue that played in the Super Bowl.
Tyler Higbee. That's who it is. I don't know why I was blanking on that. And
he got hurt in the Super Bowl. That's why. But I have some serious concerns for this team on the defensive side of the ball. There were a lot of rumors surrounding Aaron Donald on if he wanted to play football anymore and if he was going to retire this offseason. And so I do still think he's one of the better defensive players in the league. However, if he loses that drive to want to continue to play, I do question how big of an impact he can have on that roster. Also, the loss of Von Miller, he played a really big role on their edge. And frankly, outside of those two guys, Jalen Ramsey was really the only other guy that I thought was a big difference maker. And man, did he not play well in the Super Bowl.
No.
The pass, the missed offensive pass interference aside, I'm not going to count that play. He still did not play well.
Well, he could have single-handedly cost the Rams the Super Bowl with that performance, because of if the Bengals had a somewhat decent offensive line, Joe Burrow hits Jamar Chase for that game-winning touchdown at the end of the game, and he also got burned several other times throughout the game that resulted in Bengals points. But on the defense side, there's definitely going to be a lot of question marks. There's still some talent, but it's not any names that jump out that are serious game changers outside of Aaron Donald, as you said, but who is getting up there a little bit in age, and then also the Jalen Ramsey. But Jalen Ramsey's also getting up there in age a little bit too. I think he's 28, 29.
28 or 29,
yeah.
Definitely in his late 20s. But I just think in that division, the Cardinals, especially
he's only 27. He's only 27.
I guess he has been. He kind of has been a star in the league since he was a rookie in Jacksonville. So, he's garnered a lot of attention. But I think in that division, I think Seattle is going to be looking to put up points. Whether they're able to do it or not is the other question, and we'll talk about them a little later in the episode.
Well, what do you mean by looking? I mean, I feel like every team's.
I think Seattle is going to run a very pass-heavy offense. I think they're going to be looking to spread it out with the receivers that they have. They have DK, Lockett. They just got another one. I forget. Oh, Noah Fant as well at the tight end position. I think they're really going to be looking to spread it out and run more of a West Coast pass-heavy style offense. And then I also think San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan and Arizona with the weapons that they have, I think that was something that I could threaten the Rams' reign. I do still think the Rams are going to be the favorite to win that. I know they are the favorite, but I still think the Rams will win the division most likely. But when they get into the playoffs and they have to play Tampa Bay, they have to play the Eagles. I think could pose a lot of threats to them with the weaponry that they've put together. And so I am very curious to see how this team fares against higher level competition because I have a lot of concerns about that defense.
Well, and that's where there's a huge advantage really for the Rams is then their offense can make up for kind of any inefficiencies because our defense isn't weak, but it might be a little bit of a liability at times. But when you have, and they need to re-sign Odell, but when you have Cooper Kupp, who is arguably the best receiver in the league, then you have Odell on the other side, who's a great compliment to him. Van Jefferson, who we didn't mention, Tyler Higbee. That right there is your receiving core and tight end core. And then on top of that, then you're going to have Cam Akers out of the backfield. If he goes down, Sony Michel isn't there anymore.
No, he's in Miami.
That's where he is.
But Darrell Henderson is the
Darrell Henderson, who held his own, in my opinion, during all his during his time. So
he played well because he knew what he was. He's a bruiser. He runs well between the tackles. Cam Akers can do it all, but when you need 2 yards, give it to Darrell Henderson, and he can most likely get it.
Yeah,
and so
I think just a huge advantage as well for the Rams is the fact that they're in the NFC is a huge advantage for them. I mean, their team's so good and the NFC is so bad. Even if they don't win the division, they're going to make the playoffs because there's not.
If they go 9-8, 10-7, they're in the playoffs.
9-8, 10-7.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't see them going 10-7.
They would have to. That team would have to implode for them to go 9-8.
I mean, I'm just looking at it now. Tough game against the Bills. That can honestly go either way. Win against the Falcons. I think they can beat the Cardinals, and Rams. They'll beat the Panthers. They'll win a game. They'll win one game against the Niners. They'll beat the Saints.
Yeah.
They'll beat the Seahawks. They should beat the Seahawks both games. I think they can beat the Raiders. And so
the Raiders will be interesting because the Raiders have a slew of weapons that I think they could attack them with.
Yeah. But still, though, there's enough games on there. I mean, they're winning 10 games minimum.
Yeah,
and that's a bad season, I think.
Yeah.
And 10 games, I think, would put them at the 6th seed. So, for me, it all depends on whether they win the division on how the other teams develop. If the Cardinals can actually develop and maintain, I would say a solid, it's like a good season long consistency, instead of just a really high start and then the really low finish. Then that's gonna be tough for the Rams to overcome. Because the Rams, especially, they found their stride and they were very consistent the entire way, especially in the second half of the season. And then the Niners, if they can figure out kind of the quarterback situation, then that's gonna be tough. But the Rams still, to me, I agree with you. They're still the favorite. It's hard to have the Super Bowl champ not be the favorite and win to winning the division. But I think some of the offseason moves that they made, especially dressing a lot of the offensive line, and then. Their offense, I think, would be a success. Would be an A for me if they can re-sign Odell for a reasonable price. And so, actually, see how much cap space they have. Because maybe they might not be able to sign him, but they might need to make it work because Odell just makes that offense just elite. So,
let me look at the remaining cap space they have. They are a little bit over.
So they have to make some cuts then.
They're at $203.5 million, which is 101%, pretty much.
Now, is that because there's something with the June 1st? I'm pretty sure there's a June 1st deadline where you can cut guys and then.
We'll have to see.
Yeah, and we're recording this on May 29th, so
they did record. They did kind of mortgage a little bit of their future for last year, not just draft picks but also cap hit wise. So they're still going to be paying off some of those contracts from last year. So it might be hard for them to re-sign Odell Beckham. We'll just have to see. They can also kind of keep kicking cap down the road, maybe have Cooper Kupp or Matt Stafford restructure to bring Odell Beckham back. So I do want to go ahead and kind of move over into the Cardinals here. So to me, the Cardinals are a really interesting team this year. They started out 7-0, the only undefeated team, and then they finished the year 2-8 or 3-7.
I thought they had 11 wins.
Did they get to? Oh, so they were 4-6.
Yeah.
Okay. So still, that's not a good second half of the year. Now, I'm really interested to see what happens with them because DeAndre Hopkins is suspended for the first 6 games of the year. Marquise Brown, who they spent their first round pick on, which if you watched our draft review, I don't think either of us really liked that trade. But the Cardinals looked really, really good for the first half of the year and then just fell off. And I think the Cardinals are the biggest threat to the 49ers because if they can just piece it together throughout the whole season and DeAndre Hopkins can come back from suspension and be healthy and the top receiver in the league that I think he can be, I struggle to see a world where the Cardinals aren't competitive in that division.
Well, they should be competitive, and they are competitive every year, or the past couple of years. The issue has just been how they've been finishing, and that's where and we've said this a lot. I think Cardinals fans can agree, but there's something going on inside the front office, inside the coaching room, where it's halfway through the season, it just falls down. I think what's Cliff Kingsbury? Cliff Kingsbury's got like an 800, 900 win percentage rate in like the first half of the season, and it drops down to like a 300 win percentage in the second half of the season, or something along those lines. And it's how is it such a dichotomy? How is it so partisan on from the first half of the season to the second half of the season? Like what changes? And to me, that's where it's coaching is. They don't have an adapting game plan.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Is I think that they just run the scheme that they want to run, and then teams adjust to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they adjust to it, they can't run anything else well. So then they just don't adjust. And so their team is set up to play football the way they want to play it. And then if they play a matchup nightmare, then it doesn't go well for them. And sadly for them, that was really physical teams.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me, I think the downfall for that team was the Green Bay game when Green Bay went in there without Devontae Adams, without Marquez Valdez-Scantling, without Alan Lazard. They had Alan Lazard without Robert Tonyan. Mm-hmm. And Aaron Jones and that offensive line, which was not very good, just ran the ball down their throat because they were just more physical that day. And that to me is kind of where the Cardinals teams have struggled. And they had a good pass rush, but Chandler Jones left for the Raiders. And did they find anybody to replace him? I know they drafted a couple guys.
From what I have seen, no. And that's one of the things that there has been some very interesting just kind of thoughts on the Cardinals offseason so far. Is they've had a lot of re-signings, but not too many additions as of now. From what I've seen on their additions, and this is from early April, but they've added on cornerback Jeff Gladney, linebacker Nick Vigil, offensive line Will Hernandez, which will be a starter, so I do like that, and tight end Steven Anderson. But when it comes to defensive line, they haven't really addressed that position yet, which is going to be very interesting. But every other one that they have got guys that have left, such as Chase Edmonds, Christian Kirk, for example, they have replaced them kind of with someone else, or have re-signed another member, like they re-signed James Conner, to that. They did re-sign Zach Ertz. So they've done some re-signings, but are still kind of there's a similar team as last year minus Chandler Jones, essentially.
Yeah. And they did draft Cameron Thomas out of San Diego State and Micah Sanders out of Cincinnati. Two small school guys, but maybe in a rotational role, one of them can find some success, and then they can continue to build. But I think that's going to be a big loss. But with this offense, I think Marquise Brown brings a better deep threat than Christian Kirk. And if DeAndre Hopkins can come back, they re-sign Zach Ertz, correct?
Yeah.
And then they drafted
AJ Green they haven't re-signed AJ Green yet. So even though I don't think that's veteran presence, but it's not going to be.
Yeah, he had a couple touchdowns in one game. Like he was definitely more of an accessory than a mainstay there. Yeah. But if AJ Green is my accessory, I think that's a luxury.
Yes.
So they drafted Trey McBride in the second round from Colorado State, who's a tight end. And I think that Cliff Kingsbury has the creativity on offense to utilize all of these weapons. And with Kyler Murray back there, it poses an extreme threat to defenses with his dual threat ability. So I'm really curious to see if this offense can improve and be what it was in the first half of the season. Because frankly, in that first game against Tennessee, it looked like Arizona's offense was 4 steps ahead of everybody else in the NFL. And I guess the law of averages kicked in, but didn't quite last.
And that's where, to me, I wonder, this is going to be a hot seat season for Cliff Kingsbury, because you're just how can you be so dominant one half the season, and then clearly then you stop being dominant, and then what's your solution? All right, let's double down even harder on what we were doing in the first half of the season, and it's like that's not going to work. You have some of the smartest minds in football. I mean, you don't have too many. And I know kids watch, so I won't swear, but you don't have any stupid people, really. I mean, we all say they're stupid, but they're all pretty smart, very good.
Oh yeah,
strategicians.
Strategist.
Or strategists. That's probably better. So I like mine, strategicians. But strategists on every single football team, so they can figure this stuff out, and then they can solve the puzzle. Give it a couple games. Go look at Green Bay and their week one. They looked like one of the worst teams in the league. They played so bad, people thought New Orleans were a Super Bowl contender. That's how bad they played. And then give it a couple weeks, and then they figured it out, and then they go on, and then they were a no contest number one seed in the NFC. So it just takes some time, And so that team is so athletic. They should be contending for the division every single year. And we said last year that they could have won it, and that they were going to be our favorites. But it's now just the consistency, time and time after again. I think they'll make the playoffs just because their team's super athletic, and they're going to get off to a hot start.
I was going to say, and that actually is one of the things I think we might have left out. They do still have Budda Baker. I think it's Isaiah Simmons, the third-year linebacker out of Clemson. And then also Zaven Collins, who didn't play a huge role last year, who's an extremely athletic linebacker out of Tulsa. So they might have a little bit more depth on that second level of the defense.
Yeah.
And they can utilize those athletes on the defensive side of the ball. I still just have questions after a defense that really lacked physicality last year, and then they lost their best pass rusher.
Yeah. So. Well, and that's what I'm saying. Outside of Chandler Jones, which is a big loss, I'm not saying that that's not a big loss, but they need to find people that can kind of reproduce that production, whether it's just one person or a group of people. But other than that, though, they're kind of the same team. Marquise Brown is now the new Christian Kirk, as you said, maybe a little bit better. James Conner, and then they did add on another running back. I'm trying to remember who it is. I think didn't they draft one?
Keontae Ingram from USC.
Keontae Ingram. I thought there was one other. I thought they got another veteran in there.
I can look, but athletically, like you said, on offense, I think that they really should.
Oh, Darrell Williams. That was something that just happened from Kansas City. So now so now you have your running back tandem.
And that's Darrell Williams played well in that in the role he had in Kansas City, and I think he can be utilized in a similar way. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I'm just looking at the schedule here, and it's like, honestly, like I'm looking at their first game. They're hosting the Chiefs. I think the Cardinals can win that game because normally the Chiefs, especially the Chiefs, is going to be kind of a new revamped Chiefs. The Cardinals won't have DeAndre Hopkins, but the Chiefs normally have gone on to a slow start, and then they pick things up similar to Green Bay. And the Cardinals are the opposite. And so, I can see them winning like a lot of their first couple games. They got Chiefs at Raiders, at host Rams, at Panthers. That's a definite win. Host Eagles, at Seahawks. I could see them going 5-1 during that stretch, just because.
Honestly, the only team that I think is a definite loss in that list is the Eagles. I think the Eagles are way too physical for them on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, we'll have to see how they how they ended the year, the Eagles, translates then to the beginning of this year, and so then they could beat the Rams very early on. The Rams just started off slow, had to mesh a little bit, and if they can put up points against that Rams defense that we just talked about, then it could be in for a shootout. So, but to me though, that's where I just don't trust their coaching staff now. And if I'm a Cardinals fan, I wouldn't, and be like, all right, let's go. That's great that we started 7-0. It's like the Golden State Warriors. That's great you won 73 games. Who won the championship that year?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. So that's just my biggest thing with the Cardinals is they need to work on the consistency. And then if you look at the last couple of weeks, their only easy game is the Falcons, but they're host Chargers, host Patriots, at Broncos, host Bucks, at Falcons, and then at Niners. As I said, the only guaranteed win that they should win is going to be the Falcons.
Yeah,
those are some tough games, and they better be playing good football by then.
Yeah,
or still by then.
And that's I think if you look at one of the congruent things with all teams that play well in the playoffs is that the season is a slow build. They don't come out swinging for haymakers in every game. They kind of build, find out what they're good at, and slowly build and build and build. And I think the Cardinals need to take the long approach to it. And so hopefully their coaching staff has learned a little bit from that, from the past couple years, and hopefully, not saying that like they don't want to go out and win early games, but hopefully they take the approach of like, well, it's like this is what we're good at, we're going to stick to it. It's like, well, it's like you need to learn to be good at multiple things, and really perfect that. So, I think the Cardinals are in a good situation. I just am curious to see if they'll execute. Up next, for me, if you're ready to move on to the 49ers.
Yeah, absolutely.
To me, this is the most interesting team in this division for one reason only, and that's the quarterback situation.
Yeah.
Even Seattle's quarterback situation is like Drew Lock's the guy. I have no idea what they're going to do with Jimmy G and Trey Lance, because Kyle Shanahan came out in last year's draft and was like, Jimmy G will be the quarterback for next year. Trey Lance can sit behind him and learn. And then in 2022, Trey Lance can take over. And now we're hearing rumblings that Trey Lance might not be ready to do that.
Well, and that's my thing. And this is where the sports media can overhype a player and be like, nothing against Trey Lance, but he didn't play football for a whole year and he was playing FCS football and on these kind of set designed plays. Yeah, he threw 42 touchdowns. Great guy, like great arm, super athletic. That's great, but it's going to take a little bit more time than that. And it's not like Jimmy G's a slouch still. I mean, he took him to the NFC Championship, and if a couple things go their way, and the Super Bowl, and I think he fits very well in that system. His career, he's panned out now. He is an Alex Smith. Way Alex Smith, and that's perfectly fine. Hell, it got him to the Super Bowl and it got him to NFC Championship. And I think that it's something that they can consistently keep doing. Now, if Trey Lance is able to develop, then he adds a whole new weapon as well. However, though, it's something similar to kind of what we were talking about last year. It's like you just went to the NFC Championship with this quarterback. If you feel like Trey Lance can't at least go and do that,
why trade up?
Yeah, but especially knowing now in the NFC, you're a lock in the playoffs essentially. The Cardinals, Niners, and Rams should all be locks in the playoffs because the NFC is that bad. They're that bad, So why risk it? I understand you said a third round pick on him. But if he's not developing the way that you want him to, if he's struggling with his accuracy, especially in that Kyle Shanahan offense, which can be very complex, and then a lot of moving parts, you need to have an accurate passer back there. But if he's able to come in and start and be just as effective as Jimmy G, then absolutely send him in there because then he adds a whole new dynamic to that running game, which is already very lethal.
Yeah. And I can't imagine the plays that Kyle Shanahan could come up with if Trey Lance can be safe like Jimmy G throwing it and then running it the way that he was able to in college. And granted, he won't be able to do that because the NFL is much bigger and faster than the FCS talent that he was playing against.
Yeah.
But if he can run and kind of be like a Cam Newton, I think that presents so much more opportunity for Kyle Shanahan. Now, I have a question for you, and this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but do you think if Kyle Shanahan could go back and do that draft over, and pick at 3. Do you think he takes Trey Lance, or do you think he takes Justin Fields?
I think he takes Mac Jones because
well, fair, yeah. But
so I mean, because Justin Fields might be a little bit more of an arm talent, but I think not that Mac Jones can't run. He can run more than Jimmy G, but with Mac Jones, he would be able to. He would be able to come in and then run that offense from day one and be extremely more accurate than Trey Lance. He already has the passing tools and capabilities for what Kyle Shanahan is looking for. Yeah, he might not be nearly as athletic, but he's athletic enough in this day and age.
And they have a really good offensive line. I think Mac Jones would fit really well. But from what they were describing last year, they wanted a guy that had more mobility, so that way they could really incorporate 11-on-11 football. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I think if he had to do it again, he would draft Justin Fields.
Yeah, and I think that would be a solid option. I mean, if they're looking for that, then this and similar to I think we were talking about today at golf, but to living here in Nashville, everyone's excited for Malik Willis, and but then I'm excited as well. I hope he does great. But this is where, going back to the sports media, I think a lot of people hyped up Trey Lance and brought up his value a lot more than what it should have been, in my opinion. Now, I could say that 15 years from now, he could be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And so, and I'll eat my words if that happens. But taking him a huge risk with your 3rd overall pick against, and then let's say it's Justin Fields, like you said, at least Justin Fields, you have two years of college game tape. 3 years of college game tape. No, just 2 years. Just 2 years of college game tape that you could compare him to, and actually, like, this is what he's good at. This is how we can use him in the offense. So here's some things that we can work on. With Trey Lance, it was one great season in FCS with a lot of set pass plays, a lot of serious kind of vision flaws and accuracy flaws as well.
Yeah, and it's not that
Justin Fields doesn't have that.
It wasn't even just FCS. It was also at North Dakota State, which is like the Alabama of FCS.
Yeah. So you have I wonder. I mean, this would be an interesting video, but like Christian Watson just got drafted. I mean, in the early 2nd round, and he was one of the best receivers at North Dakota State. We could probably make a whole video of like Pro Bowl caliber football players in the NFL that have played or are still playing.
I mean, Carson Wentz was a Pro Bowler the 1 year. From North Dakota State, and I know they have multiple offensive linemen that have come out. They had a running back a few years ago too.
Dylan Redunz was drafted last year, and so I forget which team. Was it the Titans that got him?
No, I think it was the Broncos.
I can't remember, but like I said, we'll look it up. But there's so much talent that's from there. That's from that school. So, but for me, I still think you got to go with the veteran. If there's any doubt that. If there's any doubt that Trey Lance can't take you to the playoffs, I think you got to stick with Jimmy G, personally. You know what I mean? Yeah. At this time, it'd be different if they were the Seahawks, which like we're going to talk to in a second. If it's the Seahawks, you're like, all right, let's throw them out there. Go do what the Jets did. Go do what the Jaguars did, and just throw them out there and be like, hey, you're going to suck. Just please don't get hurt. But take I'm blanking on it. But it's take your medicine, and we're going to learn. This is learning experience. And look at where it's gotten the Jets. And they've also drafted a good team around him. I think the Jaguars have done a decent job as well. But with the Niners, though, you have like potential. You were just in the Super Bowl 3 years ago. The COVID season, you guys were decimated with injuries and then COVID as well. And last year, you won the NFC Championship and lost to your division rival by what? Weren't they winning in that game actually? And then they gave up the 4th quarter lead. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Did. Like, so it's not like they can't get there. It's like a couple things go their way. Then I think if they go to the Super Bowl, I think that they could beat the Bengals. I think they would run all over them. Even though the Bengals that was one of their strengths on the defensive side of the ball. So, but anyways. That's the main story. That's the main offseason story coming from the 49ers. And personally, with Jimmy G, if they think that he's able to do last year again, I don't see why you would move away from that.
No, yeah. Especially too, he's already on their cap hit. The only way they can get rid of it is if they trade him. And for me, I just think, like you said, if Trey Lance can't get you there, then Jimmy G, I think, has to be the guy. And so they didn't really have too many big offseason acquisitions. They had a pretty good draft. They drafted Drake Jackson with their first pick in the second round. And then
we'll say,
add some depth pieces around him.
So. On the defensive side of the ball, I will say they did add Javarius Ward from the Chiefs. And they did also add that was a big one. And they did add George Odom as well, who might mainly be special teams, but could contend at least for safety and just add some nice depth. And so they added a lot of depth on the defensive line, adding Hassan Ridgeway, Kerry Ryder as well. And so just adding some depth to already, I think, just a pretty solid overall defense. I think they're just a solid defensive team. It'll just be interesting for me, and the reason why you brought it up, it's just going to be the quarterback situation. Who's going to be the one that ends up starting?
Yeah. And to me, man, I think you have to go with Jimmy G. From what I've heard, Trey Lance just isn't ready. So you heard it here first. Jimmy G is the 49ers 2022 starter on opening day. Last but not least is going to be the Seattle Seahawks. This was an interesting team. Traded Russell Wilson after he had trade rumors last offseason. But this year they got 3 first-round picks for him?
Yeah, and I thought it was smart too, because last year they wouldn't get anything for it because the team wanted a quarterback. They'd rather trade up and go get a quarterback. Shoot, even the second and third round, there's kind of some deep. It was kind of a deep QB class. But yeah, I think that was best for all parties involved. Obviously, a clear sign that Seattle is wanting to start fresh, start new. And I wouldn't be surprised, and I've already mentioned this once, but with it being May 29th, I think June 1st is always kind of a big day, because I think then when it comes to contract signings and when you can cut players and save money on cap space, June 1st seems to be the day. I would not be surprised if they cut or trade DK Metcalf, just because I think he only has 2 years left on his contract. He's in the prime, and I think they can get some serious value from DK Metcalf and from a guy who would want to, or from a team that would be interested in winning Super Bowl right now. And he's up there, similar to Cooper Kupp. He's up there as one of the best receivers in the league, in my opinion.
He's a different type of receiver. He's much more of a deep threat.
Well, he's the big physical. He's just a mismatch everywhere.
Yeah,
he's a deep threat, big guy. He can go up and win the jump balls. And if you're the Seahawks, I mean, it's not like you're going to be winning within the next 2-3 years, and then at that point with DK, he's going to want a fat contract, seeing what all these teams are paying now. You're not going to have the cap space.
This is his 4th year, I think. So this is his contract year, because he was a 2nd-round pick.
Oh, okay, so he doesn't have a 5th-year option. So then for me, then that's even more of a clear sign that they're going to trade him. I mean, I guess they could re-sign him, but I just sign him long-term, say that he wants to stay in Seattle. But they got 3 first-round picks for Russell Wilson. They could easily get another 1 or 2 for DK Metcalf. A team like let's say they wouldn't trade him to the Rams. What would be?
Well, the Rams don't have any more first-round picks to give up.
Yeah, they don't have any more first-round picks, and neither do the Browns. That was another team I was thinking about.
Yeah.
That would potentially be
the Cowboys would be one, I think.
I think Cowboys would be dangerous. The Packers potentially.
Actually, the Packers
makes sense. Packers would be a very good one. I think the Packers would gladly give so that people can get off their backs about drafting first-round receivers. Well, we traded our first 2 first-round picks, so we can't draft a first-round receiver anymore. We're gonna have to wait to the 2nd round.
Yeah,
and so actually, shoot. Now that I say that, I think that would be a solid addition. That'd be a great addition to that team. You heard it here first. Just saying.
Yeah.
But for me, that's gonna be the big sign. But because when they got rid of Russell Wilson, they need a full reboot. Their offensive line was slightly better than the Falcons. They were 25th overall in the PFF. mean, that's not saying much of anything.
They did have Charles Cross in the draft.
Well, and that's where it started that rebuild. It
Yeah.
started that, and for me, I think they're just going to clean house and just start fresh and just build up, build that Legion of Boom that Pete Carroll was wanting that he built. Refocus that offensive line, get an offensive line. I don't want to say. I mean, I don't think they're going to tank. I mean, they're not going to try and tank, but it's a process.
I mean, I don't think any team tries to tank. I just don't think that they might trade DK Metcalf for draft picks and then play somebody else to develop them. That's what I view tanking as.
And that's not tanking. That's not tanking.
No, yeah.
Tanking is DK Metcalf is on your roster and you don't play him. Because you're waiting to try and get. That's tanking. But what's interesting though about it is like we've talked about some of these other teams in the past where it's like these non-divisional conference games. Like this could be huge come. We mainly talked about the AFC. This could be huge come playoff time later in the season, just because if this person wins, they'll have the head-to-head tiebreaker. It's kind of the exact opposite for the Seahawks in the beginning of their schedule, because so they have the Broncos, that's going to be a great game to watch because Russell Wilson will be returning to Seattle. The Niners, they're going to lose. But then they go Falcons, Lions, Saints. And then the Giants are a couple weeks later. All teams are going to be competing for that, for those top 5 picks. Yeah. So those are going to be some of the games to watch. And who knows? I mean, shoot, I think the Seahawks might be worse than the Falcons. And that's saying something. That really is saying something.
Well, that offensive line still has ways to go. I don't think that defense has anybody like Bobby Wagner's not there anymore. Jamal Adams, to me, is really the only guy of note, and he had one of the worst coverage grades of any safety in the league last year.
And think about why they got they're in this position is they traded for
a first
Jamal
and a third
Adams.
and a first for Jamal Adams, and a fourth, I think.
Yeah, and then look at what the Jets got out of it. I mean, that's going to go down as one of those trades, especially if Zach Wilson pans out to the quarterback that we all think he can be. That's going to go down as one of those trades. Like what was one of the worst trades in franchise history?
No, I literally have an article that I read the other day, and it's like the Jamal Adams trade goes down as the worst trade of the 2010 decade.
Yeah, I mean that's up there.
Think about it. You gave up 2 first-round picks and a third for a safety.
Yeah. Shoot, you could go find a Jamal Adams. I mean, you go draft 3 safeties in a draft, or over a couple of years in draft, and one of those guys might pan out. Could at least provide 75% of the production that Jamal Adams was having. Then you have another guy that comes up for the other 25% and didn't sacrifice anything. Sacrifice a 5th, 6th round pick. And so it's a horrible decision. And I'm curious to kind of see too, then we talked a little bit about with Arizona, but I think it's a little bit different with Seattle just because of the clout that Pete Carroll has and how long he's been there. Because he's one of now, especially if you look at coaches, it's one of the longest 12
years, I think.
Yeah, well, they won the Super Bowl I was in college. That was 2013, and he'd been there for a year or two.
48, and then they went to the next one at 49, and he had been there. So he's been there for about 10 years, I think.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the longest tenured coaches, and at one team in the NFL. So he has a lot of respect, and I mean he's going to be able to kind of do what he wants. And I think the Russell Wilson trade was the start to me that he might not be the last of these big name guys in Seattle to go.
No, yeah, and I think it's really interesting how they're going to go about it. I think they're starting to accumulate the draft capital, but I still think they have some of the stars in their roster. I'm curious to see if they keep a guy like DK, they sign him to an extension, and then maybe get rid of a Jamal Adams and try and trade him and recoup some of what they lost.
Yeah.
I don't think they would get anything close. They might get the 3rd round pick back at this point with his coverage grade and what it's been the last few years. So I'm really curious to see how they go about rebuilding. But all in all,
I will say one final thing is one thing I'm just really noticing here too is just from what I've seen, a lot of their additions have been on the defensive side of the ball. They got Uchenna Nuoso, Artie Burns, Quentin Jefferson, Justin Coleman, cornerback, and then Joel Benui. And then also then on top of that, within the Russell Wilson trade, they also did get Shelby Harris as well. So really trying to revamp that defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
And the QB wise, I know you mentioned earlier. Do you think Drew Lock's going to be the guy? I know they re-signed Geno Smith. I mean, there'll be some.
I think Drew Lock's the guy.
That doesn't matter.
They came out. No, it doesn't really matter. But they came out and they're like, we still have high hopes for Drew Lock. I do like that they went out and got him a left tackle. Mm-hmm. And then also I think bringing over Noah Fant from the Broncos will help him out as well. Yeah. But I think they're gonna. Drew Lock to me is a gunslinger. He likes to throw the ball down the field. He likes to throw jump balls, and I think they're gonna kind of tailor an offense to that. And they came out and they did have a press conference about it, and they're like, we think Drew Lock still has potential and that he can still learn, and so that I think Drew Lock is going to be the guy. And in a way I think I kind of like that because they're like, look, like if you are bad and we're in a position to draft a quarterback in the first round next year, we're going to do it. But if you can come in and play well enough to where we're picking 14, and we don't have a pick at one of those top guys, we'll take a top prospect and then continue to build. And so that, to me, I think that's kind of the approach that they're going to take with it. And so for me, that's the didn't mean to move that. That's kind of the approach that I think that they are going to and should take with that position. Because what you have in Geno Smith. Drew Lock is still a third-year guy fourth-year guy who hasn't really been given a full chance in Denver. Granted, I know they see a lot more of him than the fans do there, like the coaching staff does in Denver, but not quite a lot of in-game opportunities.
Yeah, so. No, I agree 100%. So I think it's a good opportunity. And then if he sucks, then I mean they're picking top 5. And they can maneuver some stuff around. Yeah.
So, but all in all, I know we both kind of said we think the Rams are going to win the division, but do you think anybody else, I guess realistically, the Cardinals or the 49ers have a chance to truly challenge them? Or do you think that this division is kind of locked up?
Well, no, it's by no means locked up. I mean, the Rams won the Super Bowl, but they're vulnerable. They have a lot of vulnerabilities. And so we're gonna see how if they can bounce back. But the Cardinals shoot themselves in the foot. Otherwise, I think they win the division last year. The Niners started off slow, but then picked things up on the latter half of the year. How they've kind of changed that offense around Deebo Samuel. And now let's say Deebo Samuel, the second half of the season, stat wise, that Deebo Samuel had. Now let's say he does that for a full season. I mean, potential MVP caliber type play if he can stay healthy, just with how much he changed that offense and dynamic. And so it is by no means a lock. It's not like the NFC South where we can go ahead and give the Bucs you can start selling first round home playoff games.
NFC South championship hats.
So started selling off the 2022 NFC South champions T-shirts, hats, and everything like that. So, but this it's anyone's divisions besides Seattle. Seattle's not going to make the playoffs. Sorry, Seattle fans. I know you guys hated us saying that last year, and who was right? I like saying that. I don't like Seattle. Seattle. I think it's. I think the Rams right now would be who I would bet on, but the Niners or the Cardinals could easily do it if they can kind of overcome their own challenges.
Yeah, and I think to me the 49ers the 49ers have a chance. I think they'll really have to dominate the line of scrimmage when they play the Rams, and I don't necessarily see that. Granted, they did beat the Rams once last year. Or did they beat them twice? I know they won the Week 17 game to get into the playoffs, but to me, I think the Cardinals pose the bigger threat because if the Cardinals can turn it on and play well late, I think that they realistically could win a lot of games.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, I think if the defense can improve and play more physical up front, that makes those games a lot harder for the Rams, who had a good run game last year, but nothing spectacular.
Mhm.
So I think it'll be interesting. Like you said, I would still bet on the Rams to win, but it's not like you said, it's not a runaway. It's not
Mhm.
going to be a participation trophy for them, pretty much. So
No, absolutely not.
yeah. But I think that is going to wrap up this episode of the Tracy Take. So if you guys have stuck around this long, please go ahead and like and subscribe. We would love to continue to grow our community here on YouTube. And we go live every Sunday night around 9 o'clock, 9:30. And we would love to have you guys back. So with that being said, we appreciate you guys watching, and we will see you next time.